Hello everyone, welcome back. We're continuing our reading of Martin Heidegger's Metaphysics, German philosopher. Very wordy in the beginning. You may feel overwhelmed, like he's twirling you around. But once you stick through his books, you can totally get his syntax down. You'll really start to be able to understand what he's saying. So you just have to stick to it. Alright, we're in paragraph that is numbered 141. Let's begin. Now, appearing takes on still another sense on the basis of the idea that which appears. Appearance is no longer fusses. So let's annotate that. No longer fusses, the emerging sway, nor the self-showing of the look, but instead it is the likeness that rises to the surface. Okay, so a likeness that rises. Inasmuch as the likeness always falls short of its prototype, true, what appears is mere appearance, really a seeming, which now means a defect. It's a defect because you can't appear to see the whole thing, and if it's a defect, that means that it's not the true thing. Well, yeah, because it's the likeness, right? So appearing is a defect, essentially, he's arguing, in this sense. Now, on a phenomenon, what is and what appears are disjoined. This involves still another essential consequence, because the idea is what really is. Oh, okay, why is that? And the idea is the prototype. Well, business marketing people would definitely say that. All opening up of beings must be directed toward equaling the prototype. Okay, so let's reiterate that. All opening up of beings must be directed towards equaling the prototype, which was the appearing. So basically, but yet it'll always fall short. Let's see what he means. Resembling the archetype. So resembling the archetype, so it's an appearance which is really a prototype, but it mirrors the archetype. Okay. Directing itself according to the idea. So the archetype directs itself through the idea. The idea depicts the archetype. Yeah, that makes sense. The truth of phusis, aletheia, as the unconcealment that essentially unfolds, is in the emerging sway. So the truth of phusis, unconcealment of what essentially unfolds in the emerging sway, now becomes homeodosis and mimes, semblance, directedness, the correctness of seeing, the correctness of apprehending as representing. Okay, so semblance, so that's another synonym almost for appearing, right? Directedness, that goes back to the guidance points he made of idea, remember? The correctness of seeing, appearing, the correctness of apprehending as representing. It's a defect, though. Let's see. When we properly grasp all this, we will no longer wish to deny that the interpretation of being as idea stands at a distance from the original inception. Being as an idea, I mean, if we speak of a fall here, then we must insist that this fall, despite everything, still remains at a height and does not sink down to a low level. If we speak of a fall here, well, fall sounds to me like a low level, so what do you mean? We can measure this height by the following considerations. The great age of Greek Dasein. Okay, remember his Greek Dasein? And we have historical Dasein, remember? It is so great, it is in itself the only classical age, that even creates the metaphysical conditions of possibility for all classicism. Well, I mean, that's not really as fair. How do you know? Have you read the Mother's ones, Heidegger? What'd you say? And the basic concepts. Idea, paradigma, homeosis, and mimesis, the metaphysics of classicism. Okay, so let's put that in brackets, because he's contending that these 4 terms are used to categorize the metaphysics of classicism, is delineated in advance. Plato is not a classicist yet because he cannot yet be one. What? What do you mean? But he is a classic of classicism. Oh, well, because it started with him and Aristotle and Socrates. So he's the classic. I mean, he was the icon, in a way, right? Kind of a ground setter that people would refer to and aid them in their building of their rhetoric muscles. The transformation of being from phusis to idea itself brings about one of the essential forms of movement within the history of the West, not just the history of Western art. So the transformation of being from phusis to idea, that one we can't let slip past us, where he's going into. And that because phusis turned into idea, that helped not just art history, but the history of the Western world in general, he contends. Now we must trace what becomes of logos in accordance with the reinterpretation of phusis. The opening up of beings happens in logos as gathering. Okay, so yeah, he did give us the thing about the collectedness, the gatheredness, right? So the opening up of beings, that is something that occurs within logos as it gathers. Gathering is originally accomplished in language. Hey, that's kind of clever, because you're categorizing it, and then once you categorize it, you can group it, right? So you gather it into sections to where you can break it down and put it into a numerical framework and structure it so that you can access it kind of more easily. Makes sense. Thus, logos becomes the definitive and essential determination of discourse. So logos is the essential determination that aids discourse. Yes, I mean, many would agree with such a statement. Language, as what is spoken out and said, and as what can be said again, preserves in each case the being that has been opened up. Ooh, the being that has been opened up through language. And it doesn't matter which language you say it in, it's going to be preserved either way. The idea of its beingness will be preserved in the word, within the system of language, regardless of the word itself. The idea is inherent within the word. What has been said can be said again and passed on. So it's like the same, a tale as old as time, right? Same story, just different language. The truth that is preserved in this saying spreads in such a way that the being that was originally opened up in gathering is not itself expressly experienced in each particular case. So opened up in gathering, through language helping you gather. In what is passed on, truth loosens itself as were from beings. Ooh, that's a poetic way to put it. Truth loosening itself from beings. Remember though, language, people not really delving deep into certain language, allowed this, and meaning getting more and more enveloped of layers and nuance. Very interesting. This can go so far that saying again becomes mere hearsay, glossa. Everything that is asserted stands constantly in this danger. Ooh, saying again becomes hearsay. That's an interesting phrase. This implies that the decision about what is true now takes place as a confrontation between correct saying and mere hearsay. Well, yeah, of course. Logos, in the sense of saying and asserting, now becomes the domain and place where decisions are made about truth, that is, originally about the unconcealment of beings and thus about the beings of beings. So now becomes, logos is becoming the domain where decisions are made about truth. Yeah, so we hope that's many people's goals, right? Now, the unconcealment of beings and also about the being of beings. So it's unconcealing the truths related to those factors. In the inception, logos as gathering is the happening of unconcealment. Because once you gather it, you bring it near, and it's no longer appearing and seeming, and then you'll come to see what it is and what's behind it, right? And you'll be able to apprehend the idea, which is the more of the aspect that contains the beingness in it, right? That's what he said. Logos is grounded in unconcealment and is in service to it. Ooh, so yeah, I mean, he made that assertion. He's laid down that argument for us that logos, it reveals, yeah, and it is in service to it. It's a very unique way. It's subservient to it to kind of philosophize on that. But now logos as assertion becomes the locus of truth in the sense of correctness. We arrive at Aristotle's proposition, according to which logos as assertion is what can be true or false. Truth, which was originally as unconcealment, a happening of the beings themselves that held sway. So truth was the original unconcealment. Yeah, unconcealing those lies, right? We can get along with that. A happening of beings because they're their true beings if they're subservient to the being of beings, right? And now the beings themselves holding sway, yeah, kind of ripple effect, yeah. And was stewarded by means of gathering. Now becomes a property of logos. Stewards of gathering.